All right, let me just check this audio as usual. There we go. Sounds good. All right, that sounds good. Close that out, and I think we're good to go. It's going to be a short stream tonight. It's not going to be an all-night stream or anything. Kind of just going over a few things. Had a couple questions about that some people posed for the system that's basically landfalling over the Tidewater, Virginia, with some really heavy rain bands here this afternoon, and especially now this evening, working into areas like Newport News, Hampton, Bethel Manor, up towards Williamsburg in Virginia. This it's kind of the meat of the rain bands that we've actually been following over the last 24 hours. It's finally coming ashore now. The center of this is somewhere over here around Cape Charles, at least the low-level kind of center of this core of precip. And so, yeah, this band is basically the heaviest band around this low that's working kind of essentially towards the northwest, west-northwest. And the models have this kind of drifting around. Woo! The models kind of have this drifting around in this area essentially the next 24 to even 48 hours. So once this low comes ashore, it's just kind of going to meander around and then eventually get pulled back out and out of our hair. Until it does, there's actually a broader field of some gusty winds and some heavy rain bands coming ashore here. Most of this is in Virginia, but some of this is into the southern Delmarva, especially parts of Maryland around Salisbury and even up towards Ocean City, Maryland. Some of this is also working into the Potomac areas here in northern Virginia and also even into Washington, D.C., it looks like, just in the last little bit. So we're keeping an eye on that. This is a great view that we've actually had while I was kind of setting up the stream and monitoring things, but you can really see these are some thunderstorms in northern Kansas that are severe, looking at them from the west, so they're illuminated by the setting sun. But we also do have some cameras in some other locations. Let's get those here. This is, the sun is starting to set, so maybe not seeing these well, but there are some really gusty winds and some pretty heavy rain in the Newport News, Virginia Beach, and Norfolk areas. It does not look like a fun commute. I'm not jealous of anyone on the commute here. Particularly this location here at Big Bethel Road and Saunders Road is right in this camera has definitely gone downhill. This is right in kind of the meat of this band. And let me find it again. Here is, yeah, it's right about here. So actually some of the worst of this has just moved past this camera. But yeah, some of this here is Newport News, Williamsburg International Airport, Windsor Great Park, Newport News Park, Port Warwick, all the way down into basically downtown Newport News. This is a pretty gusty band. I have some of the mesonets on, and further inland, we're getting gusts in that teens to 20s kind of range, but close to the coast, some of these reports earlier, here's a 20 to 26 mile gust, 16 gusting to 35. Some of these areas, especially closer to the coast, this one's interesting. This is a buoy off of essentially the Chesapeake Bay and Tunnel, just in that area here. So a little more open water on the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. Wind speed there is over 40, just over 40, gusting to about 46. Earlier I saw was gusting over 50. Let me see if I can find another one. Here's a little closer to the shoreline, gusting to 26, steady at about 18. So there are some pretty good gusts out here, especially close to the coast. Yeah, here's one of them, a buoy just off of Virginia Beach here. Wind speed at 45, gusting to 55. So essentially tropical storm force wind and gusts here on the lower end of a tropical storm. Again, this isn't one that's kind of more of a hybrid system. The low is still connected kind of loosely to a degraded frontal boundary. So although it does have a little bit of a warm core around the low, you can also see that's also indicating here, we do have some cooler temperatures here. These are non-tropical temperatures with actually a lot of southern Virginia into the 60s right now. So a full tropical system, you would still see some tropical-like temperatures and dew points, and we're not seeing that. So that's kind of helped verify the more hybrid status, subtropical status of this system. I wouldn't be totally shocked if, going back and looking through the analysis, if this eventually gets some type of subtropical designation by the National Hurricane Center. A lot of times they go back through the season and kind of reanalyze things. It is a fairly well organized low pressure here, wrapping a pretty tight area of rain and storms. We've had a couple, I think, severe thunderstorm warnings. There is a low end tornado risk across the Tidewater. I haven't seen any tornado reports out of this area, but you could get a quick landfalling water spout. This area up here, let's check. Yeah, this is in one of those stronger rain bands. 17 steady, gusting to 30 over here around Olney and Boston and Cat's Bridge. So there's definitely some pretty good gusts, even up towards Salisbury. Let's check there. Yeah, 15 gusting to 31. So even outside, a little bit further away from that center, it's a pretty nasty night. And let's play with some new toys here. Click over to WeatherWise, where they just added some models to their tray of tools. This is a HRRR model here out of, let's see, it is just one of the last HRRR runs, 21Z HRRR run, and starting at about 4 o'clock p.m. You can see it actually has, the HRRR I think has done, it's not generally used for tropical systems, but the HRRR the last couple of days I think has done actually a pretty good job at pinning this system down. You can see here, it basically has it coming ashore exactly where it came ashore, around that Cape Charles area, just at really the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay, where the Chesapeake Bay Bridge and Tunnel cross the bay. That's essentially exactly where it came ashore just a little bit ago. And this particular run of the HRRR has it meandering, actually even eventually back a little towards the southwest by tomorrow mid-morning in that area around Richmond. So this could be a pretty nasty commute tomorrow morning around the Richmond area, backing it up to about 7, 8 a.m. here. That's going to be a not a great drive if you're in the Richmond area. Gusty winds, heavy rain, and maybe even some stronger storms in some of these pockets. We can also see we're going to have to watch a little bit into the mid-Atlantic tomorrow, and the HRRR has hinted at this the last couple days. As the thing kind of spins, some of these outer rain bands could have some gusty showers and thunderstorms. They could get a little intense at times, especially at least on this last HRRR run, even up through the Washington, D.C. metro, Annapolis, across the Bay Bridge, over to the Delmarva. We do have to watch, I think, tomorrow morning and even into the afternoon for a chance at an isolated severe storm. Those bands will continue kind of working inland and even push up a little further to the north. So even into southeastern Pennsylvania, South Jersey, things could get a little interesting with some of those outer rain bands, at least some localized flash flooding, especially in some of these urban environments. And then especially down here into Southern Virginia, Richmond, Newport News, Norfolk, Virginia Beach. I've been concerned, and we've posted about it on some of our social media channels the last couple days about it, about some of the flash flood threat, especially with some of these urbanized environments with the concrete and areas here, the city infrastructure around Norfolk, around Virginia Beach, up through Hampton and Newport News. That may stretch over into areas like Richmond by tomorrow and tomorrow morning. So we do have to watch that. Yeah, the HRRR I think is doing a decent job at this system. And actually, just to kind of check, I do want to see, this is the Rufus model. Let's see what it kind of shows. It's a newer model. It's in experimental mode right now, but actually the National Weather Service is actually bringing it into operational mode like next year. So we'll be using this more. And sometimes I think it overdoes the convection a little bit. You can kind of see that here. It's really bringing like a really heavy rain band into this area, but I think it's got, similar to the HRRR, it's got the position, I think, down pretty good. It does, I think, tend to over-convect a little bit. But yeah, it's showing that rain band kind of working its way here this evening across the Newport News area, and very similar to the HRRR, showing it kind of working its way west-northwest into the overnight arrows into Richmond, into the I-95 corridor. So it's going to be a rough night. If I would live in this area, hunker down. If you don't have to go anywhere, I would stay home this evening. It's going to be gusty, rainy, and some localized flash flooding, as well as some urbanized stream flooding. Some of those low-lying areas you may know about around your neighborhood, they get water over the roadways, things like that. Some small creeks and streams may run their banks. So definitely turn around, don't drown. And if you don't have to go anywhere overnight during these hours of dark, I would recommend not doing that. So that's that model. Just a little further out, let's see what the GFS says. This will take us out a little bit longer than the convective allowing models. So let's pull this up. Come on, it's loading. All right, here we go. Let me back that up. So once again, it shows this coastal low kind of meandering around, eventually kind of, this would be 7 a.m. again, kind of tomorrow. So similar to the HRRR, showing that band of heavier rain and embedded thunderstorms around that Richmond-Petersburg 95 corridor by tomorrow morning, and kind of just staying in that same area through 10 a.m. Maybe, since it's going to be over land, weakening a little bit with some more showery type activity. And then eventually the HRRR kind of pulls it out. This would be actually overnight Wednesday into Thursday. So eventually kind of pulling it out then. Yeah, so this may be kind of in general, this area here may be dealing with this for at least the next couple days, from the I-95 corridor, from around areas here in northern North Carolina, eastern and southeastern Virginia, even up through the Delmarva, Maryland, and into some areas of the mid-Atlantic, Philadelphia, even up to New York City. May get some gusty showers out of this the next few days, and watching some of those outer rain bands for an isolated severe thunderstorm wind gust or a quick land spout or water spout kind of onshoring. So we'll kind of continue to see and track this system. At least it's going to be around the next couple days. All right, let me switch back to our normal setup. Yeah, this likely isn't going to be Gabrielle. I don't think they're going to name it now, especially since it's basically landfalled. I don't think they're going to also. I thought they should have probably had at least an area of interest highlighted the last couple days. It hasn't fully detached from the frontal boundary that it's kind of latched onto. So this is more of a hybrid subtropical system. But yeah, Gabrielle is almost a guarantee. It's hard to say that anything's 100% in meteorology, but Gabrielle is going to be, I think, almost a guarantee here. Probably even more than 90%. All of the global models, the Euro ensemble, the GFS ensemble, are all taking this increased here. And let me get the satellite up, and we'll see here. Obviously, we've lost the light out in the central Atlantic, but this is a massive system. It is roughly over 1,000 miles spread. You can see it's ventilating itself really nice with these high clouds. The more compact area here is probably like 600 miles. So it's got at least a decent area of convection that it's starting to organize around a low pressure center. The other nice thing is it's so expansive that it's helped to fight off some of the dry air. There's still actually quite a bit of dry air in the Atlantic, especially north of the main development region. So it's helped kind of insulate itself from that with this mass of moisture that it's taken with it, which is this dry air that's been in effect for much of the Atlantic hurricane season still has tended to keep some of the activity down a little bit. But yeah, this one is going to develop. It's not a threat for Puerto Rico. It's not a threat for the Leeward Islands. all of the global models have this going to the northwest, and then eventually pulling it at just kind of whatever point the models take this basically over, and it's going to be a northward curving system. The one area I think has maybe a little more interest in really paying attention is Bermuda. Bermuda here could be on the longer term end, getting some more direct impact. So if you know anyone in Bermuda, or if you have interest in Bermuda, maybe taking a trip down there the next week or two, definitely pay attention and watch this system, because yeah, the only real difference in the models is just where it takes that turn. Some models have it kind of pulling up towards the north a little quicker. Other models have it pulling up a little further towards Bermuda. So none of the models really have it going towards the coastline right now of the US. So that's a good sign. We do have to watch this next system. Some of the models the last week or so take it more in a westerly turn. And right now you can see the official area of interest by the National Hurricane Center has it more on that westerly direction as well. Although the last couple ensemble runs for the GFS and Euro also kind of turn it more towards the north. So even that next system may not reach areas like Puerto Rico or the Leeward Islands. But that one, this second system, is one that there is some potential it could go more on a westerly route. So Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, I would definitely keep an eye on that secondary system. Although, again, right now, that one may have a little more dry air to fight. It's not quite as robust as what's likely going to become Gabrielle here in maybe the next 48 hours, if not even 24 hours. Maybe by tomorrow afternoon, this may become Gabrielle. This one, yeah, it's going to struggle a little bit. The models kind of vary a little bit right now in intensity of this next wave. And I try not to bring it up too much because it starts to get into fantasy land, but some of the models even have a third wave that's still kind of over Africa right now. Some of the models even take that and develop it somewhere out in here. So we'll have to see. There may be eventually, the Atlantic might look like actual hurricane season with a hurricane, some type of tropical system, and then a developing tropical system. So we might have three at once. But right now, those are a long way away from any interest in the US or even interest in the Virgin Islands or Puerto Rico. But this one, if it does develop, especially north of the islands, this could push some high waves and heavy surf towards the islands. So if you do have interest out there, make sure you're swimming on guarded beaches. There could be some high surf later, especially if it hugs more of the southern part of this area of interest. If it goes more towards the north, or certainly if it pulls north quicker, that'll reduce the impacts on any wave activity. And this likely will have maybe some minor wave and coastal impacts along the US coast, depending on how strong it gets. A couple models do have this getting pretty strong, kind of somewhere out here in the central Atlantic. That'll also depend on which track it takes. If it tracks closer to Bermuda, that'll push a little more wave action towards the US coastline. If it tracks east of Bermuda, then the wave impacts will be a little limited as well. There's Bermuda right there showing up on the Atlantic basin there. The other area that we do have to kind of pay attention to is the Eastern Pacific. The Eastern Pacific has been crazy active, unlike the Atlantic. And let's get the forecast track up for what is Mario. If anyone has any interest in California this week, Mario is no longer a tropical system as of earlier today. It is kind of still a really gusty area, just kind of a tropical depression. It's starting to get ripped apart here. You can see it has an exposed low-level circulation, and all of the moisture is getting pulled off to the north. This is going to get continued to get pulled north, and actually up into California. So we've mentioned it in a couple of our weather briefs in the morning, our morning weather briefs, but Southern California, even up through the Central Valley of California, is going to get some pretty heavy rain and some moisture out of this. Particularly, flash flooding is an issue in some of the terrain, the higher relief terrain in California, as well as areas that have wildfire burn scars where there's not a lot of vegetation to hold back those the soil and the rocks and things. So areas like that, if you have localized areas of wildfire impact and certainly the higher terrain, there are some concerns for flash flooding in California, as this moisture is generally going to get pulled towards the north up into LA, San Francisco, and San Diego by late Wednesday into Thursday and Friday. And yeah, that will create more showers and thunderstorm activities. Yeah, I was going to get to that too. Let's see. The Midwest has been interesting, and let's go to radar for that. Actually, if anyone has any interest around Kansas City, there's a couple severe storms right now. Those seem to be on the downtrend around Kansas City. Some, quarter-size hail, gusty winds, but there were a couple bigger storms north of Kansas City. But right now, our severe weather in the plains is concentrated to what may organize into more of a convective system. Let me clear off a few of these weather stations there. Earlier, McCook. Where is McCook? Oh yeah, here. McCook, Nebraska had over 3-inch diameter hail, apple-sized hail. There are videos and pictures on social media of car windows smashed out of the McCook area. Tornado warning earlier this afternoon, and then that supercell just kind of sat over them for a little bit with some really large hail. There are some bigger hailstorms here. Looks like the good news is that cell has kind of died off really quick, so that's good. But still areas ping pong ball size hail potentially around Hayes Center, Palisade, down towards Trenton, Max, and Stratton. I do want to take a look at this cell. Looks a little interesting. No, it doesn't really have a lot of rotation on it, so that's good. Yeah, it's been another hot and dry kind of period for a lot of the central U.S. A lot of the Mississippi Valley has been really hot and dry. Some of this is going to work into the Mississippi Valley over the next couple days. Let's see. Let's pull that back up. So this is what one of the models here, the GFS run, is saying. By tomorrow, looks like a little more concentrated area of some thunderstorm activity into western Missouri, western Iowa, and down into Oklahoma. So areas like St. Louis have been pretty dry the last couple weeks, and that may kind of just hang around. The 17th, another impulse comes in on the 18th. And another round of scattered showers, thunderstorms, some isolated severe. It looks like the severe weather should diminish some. It's been a little more concentrated in the high plains, but some strong storms nonetheless. It's going to be a little bit of a pattern change, and then eventually that pushes kind of off to by the 20th up into the Great Lakes. So it is looking like a slightly more active pattern across the Midwest. And then even into early next week, may get another round of some storms there. So that also will cool down some of the areas here that have had those heat waves behind these frontal boundaries. The other thing I noticed that the last couple days, I haven't really ran a lot of model looks at it yet, but there is another hint at another coastal low developing off of the coast of the Carolinas, on essentially the same degraded frontal boundary that has organized the coastal low that we're dealing with tonight across the Tidewater of Virginia. This one looks like it may develop maybe a little further south, and still could affect areas like South Carolina and North Carolina, Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, Jacksonville, New Bern, That's a little bit further out. That's the 22nd on this model run. So we'll see if that happens. This particular model also shows what is very likely to be Gabrielle by next week. Actually, this GFS run particularly probably even delays the organization. This is probably going to be even more organized by tomorrow than the GFS shows here on this particular run. But at the very least, by, let's see when this is, by the 22nd here, this keeps it well north of the islands, pulling up here. And again, this particular run keeps it, that could be, this is one run, but this particular run brings it narrowly close to Bermuda. So that's why I was saying earlier, if you have interest in Bermuda, that may be the one exception compared to the Caribbean islands and the East Coast. Bermuda may be the one exception to really have to worry about Gabrielle. And then eventually this gets tied up with a low pressure over the Northwest Atlantic and gets ripped out to sea to become a really strong gale. And like we see a lot of times in the Northern Atlantic, it's going to be a massive, it's still going to be hurricane force winds and probably 1,000-mile wide gale out here. At least no one's out here, but that would be rough for shipping and that kind of stuff, fishing off of the Newfoundland and things like that. Like you see on some of those like Discovery Channel shows and things, going out and get the tuna with the big waves and all that. And then there's the crab show. I don't know if that's still on, but the crab show out of the Bering Sea is kind of similar, where they're all out there in really dangerous weather. And that would be that type of situation. But yeah, this model probably delays, I think, the hurricane a little bit. Again, one run. At least right now, I don't believe WeatherWise has ensemble models. So this is just one run of about 50 models that the GFS runs. And yeah, it does show more development here. It may be underdoing this particular run. I think underdoes that second wave. Yeah, then we get out into a little bit more dreamland. So I tend to not look towards the later part of the models. The other thing I have been kind of looking at the last few days is there is signs of Central American gyre. Some days the GFS and even the Euro hints at some type of development in the Gulf. This particular run doesn't do a lot, but you can see here on the 24th, it maybe makes an attempt at organizing something in the Gulf. So again, we're a little bit far out for this to be anything really notable, but the GFS has kind of gone back and forth on something in the week of the 23rd, 24th, 25th. Yeah, some runs have it. Some runs have it more organized. Some have it less organized. But there is some low end potential. We do have to kind of keep our eye close to home. Otherwise, the systems right now are really far out for anyone in the US to really worry about. Even that secondary wave that may be on a slightly more westerly track, that could be an issue if it stays on a westerly track, but a lot of models eventually have that one pulling to the north as well. So we'll see. Yeah, that's one thing. The flooding, a lot of this area in the Midwest has had some really dry conditions. The soil is pretty dry. So it'd be preferable to get some like gentle, kind of steady soaking rain versus, big massive thunderstorms that just dump a whole lot of rain on you, because the dry soil is all compacted and it would actually just run off and expand all the flooding. So hopefully some of this kind of comes in some waves and is a little more steady with the rainfall in some of those areas around St. Louis. A couple severe storms also into northern parts of Louisiana, I should note also this evening. I do want to go back and take a look at our coastal low and see what it's doing here. Flash flood warning up for Northampton County. You know, already 1 to 3 inches of rain and additional inch, maybe even a little more than that. Let's see. I think that's a question, but yeah, there is a chance some of the model data showed potentially some. Let's go to the national forecast data. Potential for a couple inches of rain. Let's go back to switching between a couple different products here, but yeah, some of the forecast data does show some pretty beefy amounts of rain in southern Virginia and eastern Virginia. Some of this may be 3 inches of rain or some local pockets even higher than that. And then most of this is going to be over the next 24 hours or so. So there is a possibility again of some flooding overnight tonight as well as tomorrow. Let's go back to this. Yeah, this is our biggest band of rain here as this low pressure kind of works ashore here. Williamsburg up to Newport News and then across into the Delmarva. It's just a really nasty night. But the good news is, as this came ashore, the severe weather has been really limited. I think there's been a couple severe warnings this afternoon, but most of this is just gusty, heavy rain. And again, if you're along the coastline, that's where you're going to get some potentially gusts in that tropical storm force kind of range. This buoy 41, gusting to about 51. So again, it's more that open water that has more of those higher winds. So if you're right along the water, checking this because this is in the Hampton Roads area. Yeah, about 18 gusting, or only 5 gusting to 18. So that's not bad. But yeah, closer to the Chesapeake here along I-64 off of Fort Monroe. This one is a little more common, 31 gusting to 38. But yeah, some of those buoys here around Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach may be getting some of the worst of it here. 42 gusting to 52. So another area that's kind of getting borderline tropical storm force winds. And checking the bay and tunnel, 39 gusting to 45. So we are getting some of those gusts into the 40s, especially again along those areas of open water. $34-mile-an-hour gust, steady at 26. And let's check Ocean City. Ocean City here, I think the wind has backed off a little bit since we last checked Ocean City, but about 12 gusting to 22. It depends where you are, Sean. If you're right along the water, that's where you're going to get those higher gusts, 30s, 40s, even a couple 50s. If you're back here off the water, that's where I need to pull up the weather stations, like Richmond here. Richmond is right now at 18, gusting to 25. Gainesville, Virginia. Yeah, I can check that. Oh, you're in that area up by DC. Okay, you're in one of those kind of those outer bands right now. Closest I have actually is about 9 mile an hour. So that isn't bad right now. It's not gusty, not too gusty. 13. That's at Dulles. 13 at Dulles. And 7 down here. Closer to Culpeper. Yeah, not too gusty in that outer band, so that's good. Most of the wind gust right now is again along the shore, along the Chesapeake, and then also right here, just basically around that coastal low. in this kind of pocket right in there. So that's where your heavier gusts are going to be. But you might get a few higher gusts if some of this higher end precip translates to the ground, but it's not too bad right now. It's going to be some tropical-like downpours, though. Yeah, about 10 miles. Across the DC area, looks like basically about 10-mile-an-hour winds. So that's not too bad. Here's one on the Delmarva Peninsula. This is onshore, so not an open water area, but 14 gusting to 22. Here's one that's close to the water. Wallop Island, I think. 31 gusting to 50. So that's a gustier area. Again, it's kind of right along the shore where you're going to get those higher end gusts. Salisbury, Maryland, 18 gusting to 30. That's a little further inland, so that's a decent area of gusty wind. That's about 25 miles to the shore. So yeah, I think this is the band here that's a little bit gustier if the low is kind of centered right there. So if this does work towards the I-95 corridor, that could bring some gusts with it here if this works its way up with this band of showers and storms. But the good news is not seeing a lot of lightning with it. Yeah, we have the lightning detector on. So there's not a lot of cloud to ground lightning showing up on this, at least right now, which is also good. That's not seeing a lot of rotation on this. Yeah, that's good. I have to watch a little bit of these showers out here. A little bit right there. So there are more showers and storms that are going to work their way ashore through Ocean City, Salisbury, and especially the Delmarva Peninsula. And then even watch these here coming towards Rehoboth Beach. A couple pockets of some stronger storms. These are the ones that could have some potential for a brief spin up here. These types of showers and storms on these outer bands. It doesn't look like it. It looks like most of the Sean there. It looks like most of the models right now take this kind of towards Richmond, still kind of towards the west, northwest, and then eventually kind of pull it back out. So this the center of this low should kind of stay confined to southeastern Virginia and the Tidewater. But yeah, depending on where it goes, it's going to kind of meander around here and then eventually pull itself back out to sea. So it doesn't look like it's going to go direct up towards the northern Virginia area. But you're going to get rain. You're going to get a lot of rain in the next 24 hours or so with some of those outer bands. And let's clear out the weather stations, check the severe weather again. Severe thunderstorm watch goes another 3 hours until 10 p.m. And that's on a Tuesday for some scattered large hail up to very large hail, scattered damaging winds up to 70, and a couple tornadoes. Modeling showed the best chance of tornadoes kind of early in these storms development, and there was a tornado warning around McCook earlier. As they continue to upscale overnight, they may combine into more of an organized convective system, which could increase the wind threat, but should slightly decrease the hail threat and then also decrease the tornado threat. So seeing a few areas here that are some big hail, but not too bad. Colorado here has wouldn't be surprised if that has more than quarters in this storm along 36. And then back here towards Kansas, another considerable threat for golf ball size hail near Atwood. I think any of these could have some isolated ping pong or golf ball size hail out here. Ping pong's there around Stratton and Max in southwest Nebraska. And then ping pong's back here towards Laird, Hagler, and yeah, this whole cluster could have some ping pong ball sized hail in it too. So that's kind of what we're working with tonight. And then, yeah, a few isolated severe storms right now, kind of still holding on, but those should diminish as we get past the sunset here. It looks like storms are diminishing across the Ozarks. Yeah, it looks like even some hail today. west of Joplin, 1.5 inches. Ping pong ball size hail around 4 o'clock. So looks like this area, southwest Missouri, got a few larger hailstorms, at least earlier. St. Louis, you guys look clear in St. Louis right now. And those storms in Kansas City are below severe limits. Could be some still gusty winds, maybe some small hail in those. But yeah, otherwise the focus is going to be pretty focused in on central Nebraska down to extreme northeastern parts of Colorado and northwestern parts of Kansas, getting into kind of central Nebraska before that system starts to wind down. And let's go back to our model. See what's going on here. Pull up the HRRR again. Come on, load it up. All right, so yeah, here the HRRR takes that system, kind of works into maybe more organized line of storms, but that should diminish again going into the late evening. Some isolated severe weather, I think, is still possible though, even past that. The watch expires at 10 p.m., but it looks like even going into that 11, 12 could have a few stronger storms, especially down here. This would be northern Kansas. Yeah, that's a little more concentrated area. Could have an isolated severe storm still. And then, yeah, we really lose pretty much any of that convection across Missouri and Arkansas. But yeah, you can see this still bringing in some showers and storms. Again, that's that band right there that's offshore of the Delmarva right now. That is one that I think have to watch a little bit for some kind of semi-tropical style tornadoes, some water spouts coming ashore, that sort of thing. But that could be an overnight thing here across the Delmarva. It looks like 1 a.m. Still some more bands of rain with some gusty winds embedded in those coming across the DC area, northern Virginia. Again, you can see that low, the center of it, with the more steady gusts. It's going to be working towards Richmond by tomorrow morning. And yeah, just a really nasty drive tomorrow along I-95. 7 a.m. here, showing a rough drive along I-95. And then, yeah, that stops around 11, but it just kind of hangs out here for a little bit. And still watching some bands with some isolated, stronger storms, even tomorrow into the afternoon. And as I mentioned, I think at the start of the stream, even southeast PA, parts of Jersey, and even up towards New York City may get some breezy, gusty showers and an isolated storm out of this tomorrow. So definitely going to impact the weather in the mid-Atlantic for the next 24 to 36 hours. It's hard to say exactly, Sean. It's going to depend if any of these bands really set up, and the models kind of just give you an idea, but not exactly precisely where it is. But if any of these bands kind of set up and train over this area, I mean, that would increase your flood threat. And also where this exactly goes. Some models, at least the last 24 hours, had it sitting more along the coast down here towards Norfolk and Virginia Beach. Again, this model of the HRRR takes it a little further to the west into the I-95 corridor. So that would bring a little heavier rain back into the central parts of Virginia and the northern parts of Virginia versus staying, more towards the coastal areas. But we can double check too where the flood. Right now, the flood watches are up here for essentially that same area, the Tidewater. So we do have flood watches up for at least a little bit here until 2 a.m. They'll probably re-extend them, but yeah, no flood watches right now in the DC area. Wouldn't be surprised if they add that though. And also we can look with the outlooks by the Weather Prediction Center. Let's turn that off. Yeah, the Weather Prediction Center keeps the most excessive rainfall down here. Again, kind of towards that core of the system, but some localized flooding impacts up here towards Salisbury, Ocean City, south parts of Maryland, south of Washington, D.C., and then especially like Fredericksburg south, Fredericksburg, Richmond, Petersburg, down into parts of northeast North Carolina. That would be the more concentrated flood threat. It should wake up. We probably won't have any coverage of Gabrielle because it's going to be mostly out to sea, with maybe the exception of Bermuda. But we'll see. May also have to cover that whatever coastal low could develop again, another secondary coastal low next week. But at least right now, the U.S. interests are going to be fairly free of tropical activity the next week or so. Again, watch those coastal lows. Could have a secondary one next week. Still watching a Central American gyre for later in September if anything kind of spins up from there. Again, the models have been kind of mixed on it. Some days they have something coming up from developing in kind of this area here off the Yucatan. So we'll keep an eye on it, but nothing too much to worry about. And again, we talked about it in the beginning of the stream, but Mario is done as a tropical system, although its remnants and remnant moisture is going to impact California later this week with some pretty heavy rainfall, gusty winds, and potential for flash flooding and mudslides in California Thursday, late Wednesday into Thursday, Friday. And while we're on it, they should have, yeah, the Weather Prediction Center puts out the hydrological outlooks, and they do have at least a marginal risk. This will probably increase, I would guess, a little bit, but a marginal risk for excessive rainfall. Southern Arizona, extreme southern Nevada into Las Vegas, and then Southern California. That would be for Thursday. Again, wouldn't be surprised if they upgrade some of those areas and probably expand just on some of the models I saw earlier today, maybe expanding some of that excessive rainfall into Central and Northern California. But that's going to do it tonight. Just kind of a quick look at everything, a brief look at the severe weather across the high plains here, Nebraska and Kansas, and then also the brief look as this coastal low kind of landfalled around Cape Charles, producing some really heavy, nasty weather conditions along Norfolk, Newport News, up towards Williamsburg and Virginia Beach. If things go real crazy, we could always pop back on. But I do, if you do have interest in the Delmarva tonight, I would caution any travel. Let this kind of work its way ashore overnight, and then you can get out in the daylight, and it's a lot better to see any flash flooding issues. Again, could be a breezy night here into Washington, D.C., but I think it's going to be more concentrated onto the Delmarva for the nastier weather. And again, watch a few of these cells back here are kind of interesting in some of these outer rain bands. So they are going to work ashore here through southern Maryland and also into Delaware. But yeah, if anything gets crazy, we'll pop back on. But I just wanted to kind of update everybody since we do have somewhat active weather in the plains on the mid-Atlantic, and then we do have somewhat of an active hurricane season finally kind of showing up, although again, no direct U.S. impacts, at least over the next week or so for the hurricane season. So have a safe night, have multiple ways to get warnings, especially if you're in the severe warning area out in the plains, or if you're in a flash flood risk area like here in the mid-Atlantic, have your phone alerts turned on, no weather radio, make sure it's got batteries in it. And the other thing I do want to look at is just any power outages. Okay, so good. We don't have too many power. There are about 30,000 customers without power right now in Virginia. So, you know, before you go to bed tonight, make sure you know whether the radio has charged up and batteries in it, and some batteries in the flashlights, things like that, because there are some power outages. At least most of that should be in coastal areas. And we can also look at that. Hold on. County one. Yeah, they're in the area that has more of the tropical storm force gusts, like Virginia Beach, 38 steady winds gusting to 46. So yeah, most of the power outages right now are in extreme southeast Virginia. So that kind of checks out where that storm is coming ashore. But yeah, stay safe, everyone. Have a great night. If you're new here, like and subscribe, hit that bell icon, get notifications when we go live. And even on days we don't go live for severe weather, we do post our morning weather briefs, usually mid-morning, on YouTube in the social section, and then also on Facebook. So you can go like and subscribe there for the weather briefs. Have a good night, everyone.